Meeting is being recorded.
So today's thought is, happiness. We may, take it at later a time. What is happiness? How do we feel happy? So we can talk about that in detail in upcoming sessions. But happiness is a state of mind, and it really depends on your attitude. We did talk a little bit how an attitude is formed, right? So thought is your seed and attitude is your outcome. So happiness really depends on your attitude, not on what you have. So this is a beautiful picture, whoever came up with this idea. So the girl, she just has one flower and she's dancing, and the other girl, she has the whole garden to herself, but she's not happy. So the crux of this meeting is, this quote is, don't be unhappy for things which you don't have, rather be happy what you have. Have that gratitude, have that sense of fulfillment. Even during the difficult times, I can remain happy. So with that, I will request Dr. Lena to take it over. And thanks, Alok. Today's quote, keep smiling for this beautiful life journey. Absolutely true. Thank you so much. And I would encourage everybody to bring your favorite quote and share with each other.
So,
Yeah, we can hear you.
okay. Yeah, thank you for joining us. Welcome everybody. If there are some newcomers, thank you again for taking the time to join us. We've been doing a series on thought management, and in the last couple sessions, I have talked about why is it important to recognize thoughts that are not necessary, not positive, and talked about how we can actually find a way to work through our thoughts and find first what's wrong in the way I'm thinking, and that's the fancy name for that is there a distortion or a pattern that's maladaptive or not healthy for me to think this way? And I was sharing a list of different distortions last time. So I will go over some of those again, but let me share a couple slides before that, and then we will have a discussion. I would love for you guys to interact and participate and ask questions. So if at any point you would like to, have me stop and have a question, or if I'm asking questions for you to participate, please do so. I think it becomes much more of an enriching experience for all of us if we talk about some of our experience and make it more real and more relevant. So I'm going to, just pull up my slides here. And there we go. So everyone can see the slide. So,
Yes, Dr.
yeah. So here I have, we were talking about a couple strategies in the last few days, and one of the strategies that we were talking about yesterday, just to do a quick recap on that. We were talking about the first step is to identify the thought pattern or the distortion or what's wrong in the way I'm thinking, how it's not beneficial for me, and then apply a challenge to that thought pattern, and then see how you start feeling differently after using that challenge, or antidote as another way to call that challenge. So here I have a few examples. So, we talked about one of the cognitive distortions that we often find ourselves doing. It's called mind reading. And basically, you're thinking that you know what others are thinking and they are thinking negatively about you. And common examples would be she thinks I'm a loser, he thinks I'm not smart, people think I'm not good enough, those types of unhelpful thoughts that we sometimes hold on to. And we know that often, thinking that way over time starts to affect our confidence and our ability to believe in ourselves and affects our self-esteem. So for a mind reading distortion, what are some of the challenges and antidotes? So, you know, the idea is to like question, like, why should I believe in this thought? Like, even if I'm having this thought right now, is that really true? Like, can we really know what others are thinking? And, the reality of life is most people are probably more focused on their own problems or their own life than on me. So those types of antidotes can help you, really check the validity of that thought. And, once we are able to start like rationally thinking about like, oh, maybe this is may not be true. It's my own perception versus the reality. I can actually overcome the challenge to start believing in this thought, which in turn drives my feelings and my behavior. Similarly, fortune telling, thinking that you can see how things will be in future and it's bad is what you predict. So, can we really predict our future? Did any one of us, like a month ago, even thought that we will be quarantined and we will be in this situation? I bet we all had plans to maybe, take a break during spring break with our kids, go away, travel somewhere, or take some time off from work and spend time with them. So, we know that we cannot predict the future. We can plan for it, but predicting the future and believing that that would be exactly what will happen is really not what's true. So if I am thinking what, oh, I will never get a job again, or I will never be successful in my life, or I will, this means it's all over forever. So that's when you say, oh, I'm doing fortune telling right now. Let me see if I can really predict the future. And what would it be like to find out how it really is than to imagine it. So really giving yourself that little jolt that, hey, this is my imagination rather than a reality, and that therefore I am not going to keep believing in that and keep moving in that, spiral of thinking, oh, then this will happen and that will happen, and just kind of feel completely down and helpless and hopeless. So, uh, now I'm going to share the other list that I had that we were going over, and I want today to yeah.
Okay. So, Dr. Lee, I just muted you, but today there was a question asked, and even kids were also asking me, when will we go back to normal lives, or when this, shelter in place will be uplifted, when you will go back to work, and also, I was just thinking, when you said fortune telling. I said, I'm not a fortune teller at this moment. My advice is just go with the flow, right? So things are not under your control, but what you can do best is stay calm, stay positive, uh, control, and just leave the rest, right? What is your recommendation?
I would totally agree with you, Poonam. I think that's really the best way to live, being in the present moment. I'm a strong believer of practicing mindfulness, and you've attended a few of my mindfulness seminars. And last 2 weeks before we started this series, I was, going over some mindfulness exercises. So, mindfulness basically tells us to be in the current moment, to be here and now without judgment, with kindness and curiosity. And so I think, that's really what we have in our control. We really, uh, you know, often, we want control. And one of the reasons we feel nervous and anxious and worried is when we lose control. So it's understandable that your kids and all of us are feeling some of that anxiety or fear or worry about how long this is going to be, when is this going to end. But we can't really say for sure given the circumstances. Sometimes we have more kind of a proper idea about, oh, this will be 2 more months and then we have this plan and then it will be all over. But in current situation, it's even more unpredictable. So um, so I would say that reminding them that, let's not worry about what's going to, happen 10 days from now. Let's enjoy the moment we have right now and not lose the present moment thinking about the future is usually what helps in such times. Easier said than done, but I think I always also believe in this strategy of cost benefit analysis. So we especially in as raised as Indians and we value every penny we spend, right? So we are taught to really see when we are buying something, is this worth the price that I'm paying for it? And so one of my strategies is also to bring that in other aspects of life. If I am losing my current moment and my present day worrying about my future, what's the cost I'm paying today for something that I have no control over? So is this beneficial for me right now to keep thinking about it and worrying about it and losing my present moment, or is it the right kind of cost I'm paying? Or so if I do that analysis, often it helps me to understand, yeah, I'm paying a huge price for very little benefit, and this is not worth my penny, so not worth my time and my energy and my thoughts. So I'm going to move past this and do something else to engage in that's going to make me feel more positive and happy right now.
Thank you, Dr. Lina. Very helpful.
Yeah. So, are there any other questions? I want others to actually, if possible, interact. No pressure, but I think the review of distortions becomes much more helpful if we have experience to share that fit those distortions. So, I would encourage people to come out and say, oh, yeah, I think I do this quite a bit. And I honestly do a lot of them in my day-to-day life. So there is nothing unique about like, oh, if you have this kind of tendency or theme in your thinking, that means there's something wrong with you. I think these are just patterns that we have over research over time identified that these tend to be common ones that we all go through. But it's important to recognize them if we are in this journey of wanting to change from negative thinking or unwanted thinking to more necessary and positive thinking. Yes.
So, in terms of what we're talking about, in terms of kind of feeling bad about what is going to happen, we don't know the future. It'll be another year before we can go back to normal or more. So, is there a feeling of like usually if you lost someone, which is a very kind of a shocking experience, you go through four phases, right? First is
Mhm.
you blaming yourself or blaming the circumstances, and after that, your acceptance. Those four stages. Do we actually go through the same stages with this kind of cognitive distortions? I mean, especially if impact our lives significantly, like right now, right? Because everybody's
Yeah.
situations change, right? Somewhat.
Yeah. So, actually, Cliff, thank you for asking that question. So let me first answer what you are specifically referring to just clarify to others. So we know that there are a few stages of grief or loss that have been identified, right? And one of the old psychologists, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, is the one who came up with this 4 or 5 stages of grief or loss. And grief can be from anything. It doesn't need to be a loss of loved one, but grief could we grieve even when we lose our freedom or our right now, that's kind of what's happening. We are like, we have restricted freedom. We can grieve when we lose things that are valuable to us, and we have that sense of loss of control, or loss of like ability to make it better right away. So those stages, are very well, put, and those are different than cognitive distortions, but it's very normal and appropriate if all of us are feeling some of that. So the first stage often is denial. Like, um, I can speak for myself. About 5 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, when this was starting to, happen in other parts of the world, even if somebody mentioned that what if it starts happening here, I would be like, no, that's not never going to happen. And even when we started to have one or two cases identified and there was this little concern happening, even then it was like, no, 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 this will be not a big deal here, it's not going to happen. So often initially we are in denial. We don't understand the gravity of what's happened because it came kind of suddenly. We got blindsided by that. And then comes the stage of anger. So, you go through, like, you know, um, anger about like why this is happening. I have no control over this. I'm bummed about this. Then comes bargain, and sometimes we go through this stage of bargaining, like, can I at least do this? And even if it was like this were to be happening 2 months later when I would have graduated, for people who are looking forward to their graduation, or if this would have happened 2 months later after I had this wonderful trip, it would have been better. Why did this happen this way? So we sometimes go through that stage. So the denial, anger, bargain, and then comes depression. Sometimes, we realize like, actually, I can't bargain in this situation. It's, and the anger is not helping me, and I'm feeling hopeless and helpless about it. So we go through depression or feeling down. And then comes the acceptance. And that's where, seems like that's where we come to terms with what's happening. And that seems to be a stage where we feel like there's a little bit of peace that's achieved, and you kind of accept, and you say, okay, this is what it is. So let me find how I can make the best out of this, or the most out of this. So, some of these feelings, I'm sure we all have been experiencing through this last few days during this difficult time. And those are absolutely valid. So I wouldn't want you to think about like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't be thinking that way. Those are absolutely valid feeling, because there's been a sense of loss at multiple levels for us, whether you call it for freedom or plans, or things that you wanted to do, and lifestyle wise or whatnot, right? um, Cognitive distortions, on the other hand, are more just patterns of thinking that are not helpful for me to have, because those are the ones that drive my feelings and my behavior. So yes, given the current situation, I may be still using one of these patterns of thinking where I'm blaming maybe, or I'm thinking about what if this is going to only get worse and I'm never going to be able to come out anytime soon. Or I might be saying things like, I should have, moved away to some other remote place in the world, so I would have not been affected by this. I don't know. There might be those types of thought patterns that we may be having. And, you know, we just need to be aware that we don't need to run with those thoughts and believe in them, because we know the more we believe in whatever we are thinking, without questioning the validity of that thought, we start to get affected by that at the feelings level, and then it may drive our behavior. So, if I want to come to an acceptance phase and make the best out of what I have, then it's good for me to check what am I thinking and what are my distortions right now. And then that way I can, tackle those thoughts and find a way to deal with them. Was that helpful, Cliff?
Yes, yes, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Dr. Lena, um,
Yes.
I had a quick question.
Yes.
So my question is around work, right? So we're expected to, it feels like our expectation from the businesses are work, business as usual.
Mm.
At the same time, we have this inner turmoil in it. I am a little bit, I'm trying to understand how do we balance the expectations that we have from work and what we're actually facing in reality. And it's a very generic question, but I just wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm trying to understand what your question is. So, um, may I ask you one thing to clarify? Is there like, are you feeling that the expectations are high and you're not able to meet with those because you have other responsibilities and other demands on you since you're not working in the usual like way?
Not really. I mean, for me, I feel that the expectations haven't gone down at all. I mean, from a work
Mm,
side, it's exactly the same. Now, what
mm,
what I'm trying to do is to work 150% to meet that expectation with a
mm.
family of, having a kid who's 3-year old and a 9-year old, and trying to figure out, the expectations from our bosses also has to be met. So I'm trying to gauge that balance. How do I, strike that?
Yeah, so I hear you. I think, I am finding that balance to be, to strike that balance a little also more challenging because, when you are at work, you are away from all the other responsibilities at home and you're not pulled in all directions to meet everybody's demands or needs rather, not necessarily demands, but like, when you have younger kids at home, you're also trying to make sure you're feeding them, taking care of them, as well as you're trying to work. So this is definitely a challenge for a lot of us who, struggle with striking that work-life balance, even more so now that you are in the face, in the house, and you feel stretched and pulled in all directions. One of the things, that I find helpful is to certainly, we have to problem solve and find a way to make this better. But, one thing that's been helpful is to still keep a good routine and consistency in my daily routine. So I know, with no schools and that same level of pressure that we operate under, all of us are probably sleeping later than usual and waking up later than our usual times, and our schedules a little bit off. I think I tried to do that for a week and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm losing the first 2 hours of my morning where I take time to meditate, to exercise, to really power myself, charge myself for the day. And because I'm waking up late now, I have like all the other things that I need to get to. So I think one thing would be to really reset whatever your regular routine was and uh, take time out, for yourself for 15 minutes to 30 minutes every morning to, charge yourself, just like we charge our cell phones overnight and, or before we leave the house, we charge because we know this is kind of a handy tool that's going to help me all day. If I take a moment to charge myself in the morning, and you can meditate, you can pray, you can read good affirmations, positive thoughts, whatever that is, we know that the foundation of the day, if you are starting with a good note and energizing yourself and sitting and strategizing a plan for rest of the day, that can really give you a lot of energy, as well as you've taken that time to accumulate that energy and come up with a plan where, okay, I'm going to get some help from my, if my kid is older, I'm going to have them help me, cut some of the things, or if my husband can pull in for this thing. And, so I think what I'm saying is that, taking that time in the morning to take care of yourself, uh, and charging yourself, doing exercise, doing a little bit of the mind exercise, which is meditation or praying or whatever your format is, all those things give you a good start and gives you clarity and helps you to actually plan your day. And I certainly find that as an helpful, way to tackle with some of the extra demands. And certainly, you know, um, also being kind to yourself and not holding yourself accountable for I'm going to do everything perfectly. So being very kind and nice to yourself that given the circumstances, I'm doing my best. And if in this process I'm ignoring my child once in a while, or I'm delivering a project a little bit unsatisfied at my to my level or whatever, something's got to go. So allowing yourself to, you know, have a lower bar and being kind to yourself and giving yourself lots of encouragement and pat on the back for everything you're doing and managing. All those things are usually helpful to boost our confidence and motivate ourselves to do better and better the next day and find a better way to strike that balance.
It was very helpful.
Okay, I see a hand. Is that Sanjeev? Yeah. Go ahead, Sanjeev. Did you have a question?
Dr. Lena,
Yeah.
we will run short on time, so I think we should just right now close it. But it was a very engaging conversation today. I really like this format, and I will request all of you to send your question in advance to Dr. Lena. That will be helpful. But for today, let's take a quick moment and share our gratitude and end it with a meditation. So when I was listening to all the conversation, I think I chose the right thought today. The attitude of gratitude is stop focusing on how stressed you are and remember how blessed you are. So I know we are saying there is a tremendous pressure, but the best part is we still have jobs, right? There are many who are jobless or they might not be able to feed their kids. And we are saying, oh, we have kids, we need to take care of that. But hey, we are not alone, right? So there are people who don't have anybody to talk to. So my focus would be to feel blessed what I have. I know it's easy to say, but that's what I do to keep my sanity and to remain calm. So with that, let me quickly help you to relax. Taking just a minute, I sit comfortably relaxed, inviting my senses to relax, meeting them as friends, appreciating the work they do. I now choose to give them a break. I imagine closing the motorways of my senses. My thoughts begin to slow down. My mind becomes clear. For a few moments, nothing is moving. My mind is free, resting. I now return with clarity.